like I've been doing a lot of documentaries recently, and that's because I've been doing a lot of documentaries recently. I feel like, not that there was ever a lack of documentaries coming out, but it does feel like ones that particularly enthrall and disgust like people like me have been coming out one after another. And so, spoiler, my next few videos will most likely be about several documentaries I've watched in the last 48 hours, all of which are about someone doing something bad and terrible. This one was sent to me over by Yemi. Thank you. Also, why would you do this to me? And I was 4 minutes into that bitch and I said, I am gonna need my laptop. Got some notes to write. There was just something about the beginning that made you say, that's how you lock a bitch in. A few things were made quite clear immediately. One, this documentary is going to have a lot of the elements of like 3 other documentaries I've talked about in the last 2 years. There's some unknown number with like lying through fake numbers and phone modulators and shit. There's a who the fuck did I marry in type quality about lying about random and dumb shit. Also financial shit that I just feel like it's kind of scary to lie about. And 3, something Diane Downsian, women who want to be pregnant or have children primarily for the attention they get for being pregnant. And this story has all of those, unfortunately. And if you can't tell, I'm referring to the new Netflix documentary Maternal Instinct that follows the story of a woman named Taylor Parker who did some horrible shit that landed her as the 7th woman on Texas's death row. Always wanted to be a overachiever. Top 10? Crazy. I'm sorry, I'm using humor to deflect because this documentary is very uncomfortable. And though I have a general distaste for the idea of state-sanctioned violence and capital punishment as a concept, I will look away because the bitch had it coming. She had it coming. She had it. I've never seen Chicago. Why am I? I do want to make a point to give a verbal trigger warning. I often forget. Sorry in advance. But today is a true crime documentary. We're talking about murder, child death. If you think that will be more than you can stomach today, totally fine, baby. Viewer discretion is advised. And also, the story is a f***ing bummer all around. Again, viewer discretion is advised. But for those of you that appreciate, I guess, the filter, so to speak, instead of watching the documentary head on and have me kind of walk you through it, again, consider if that would help you. But if it don't, that's totally fine. See you later. Okay. But once the documentary started, I knew I was in for a doozy. So before I bum you out, hello, I'm Kendo. New around here, welcome. Not new around here. What is up, home skillet biscuit? I talk about shit on my channel, all types of shit. Stuff that I'm watching, stuff that made me think, stuff that pissed me off, stuff. It's almost like I'm a commentary channel. What have y'all been up to? I've been completely engrossed in Love Island still. And I hate this season. Granted, I never saw any other season prior to this, but they have since, as of the day of filming, they have kicked off 3 of my favorite people on the thing. I feel like, personally, I'm getting so frustrated as a viewer because I feel like I don't know what the rules are. And I think they don't know what the rules are either. It's just one big clusterfuck of a situationship. Sometimes we're allowed to make out, other times it's weird if we do it. Kisses during challenges don't work, then sometimes they do. It really is all arbitrary. You can't be lustful, that dumb bitch said, but the whole show is making out with everybody. If you don't explore enough, you're getting kicked off. If you explore too much, you're getting kicked off. I don't get it. And I'm starting to feel like I am way too invested parasocially in a bunch of fucked up toxic situationships in this like incestual cauldron. But I guess that's the point. It is reality TV, so fuck me. I don't get it. Maybe y'all get the rules. I don't. I would feel very frustrated if I were a participant. So that's what I've been up to because that show is way too all-encompassing. Shout outs to niggas who do recaps. But I do feel like Love Island is one of those shows that people get intense about. Like, people have strong opinions on who you think is or isn't a villain and blah, 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 who's doing the experience right, who's not doing. Whoo, y'all can keep that shit. But I will continue to watch my recap people. Shout outs. So anyway, that's all the rambles I'm going to do for today. So let's send it over to ad roll Kenny and let's get to, shall we? Hello everyone, it's ad roll Kenny and today's video is sponsored by ZocDoc. I hurt my back again recently. Just a little something sexy called being in my 30s. This is the third time it had happened in less than a year, and I was like, I think I should probably see a guy about this. And thankfully, I remembered that ZocDoc is right there, ready to help me in that moment. I was able to get an appointment with a new doctor, new consultation, same day. ZocDoc is a free website and app that allows you to find amazing doctors in your area for whatever ails you. If you've been putting off going to the doctor, taking care of your health, ZocDoc makes it so much easier to find doctors, schedule appointments, and get you in there as quickly as possible. Even if you're a new patient, a lot of those appointments can happen within 24 to 72 hours. And like I said, I was able to find a same day appointment, which was great. You can search for doctors in network, so you can always find those that take your insurance. They have over 150,000 providers within 200 plus specialties. I was looking for someone who's particularly good at dealing with physical therapy, and they're across all 50 states. They also have tons of reviews from real patients and detailed doctor profiles to help you choose the one that's right for you. So if you're procrastinating on going to the doctor, overwhelmed by the whole process of scheduling appointments, ZocDoc makes that process infinitely easier and makes it that much easier to take care of your health. Taking care of your health just got easier thanks to my sponsor ZocDoc, and feel free to go over to ZocDoc.com/KennieJD. Big thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. One of the things just structurally that I appreciate about this is that it is a documentary, not a docu-series. I have mixed feelings about that because I do enjoy a good docu-series, but not everything needs to be a fucking docu-series. Sometimes you can tell me the story in the length of a movie and call it a fucking day. This is like an hour and a half. I feel like I got the gist of it. Certainly did follow up watching some YouTube true crime videos about it later, but for the most part, they got the gist. If I want to find out more about the like minutia of the case and the events leading up to it, YouTube is there for free. Have at it. But for the sake of this video, I'm focusing much more on the hour and 36-minute documentary. And when it opened, I felt such a deep sense of dread because it opened with body cam footage. And ever since I saw that one documentary that's all body cam, essentially, The Perfect Neighbor, which I never made a video on because honestly, I hate that documentary. I think part of the importance of a documentary, of a true crime documentary, is giving victims and affected families and people the space to kind of talk about it. But that entire documentary is just body cam. So I'm just watching voyeuristically this just terrifying and horrible experience. Also, I think it goes a bit too voyeuristic for me, especially because if you haven't seen that one, essentially a woman is shot by her neighbor and her children see it happen. And I'm watching a documentary of these Black children finding out that their mother is dead. Like, I don't need, it felt too exploitative to me for the sake of being like, we're just giving you the raw, what happened. Ugh, I'm okay. I don't get off just from hearing terrible things happen, especially again, children, very young children, listening to them cry about the worst experience of their lives. Undoubtedly. So at first I was like, is this going to be that? And luckily it's not, but it does start off with body cam footage of our murderer. It starts off with body cam, particularly from a state trooper that is following a woman named Taylor as she is speeding dangerously into Oklahoma, nearly hitting a man, running over a hawk that was still stuck to her wheels by the time they pull her over. At the time of her speeding, Taylor was on the phone with 911 saying she was having a baby in the car and that she needed an ambulance.
You're gonna need an ambulance.
I'm fine. If you'll just get us there as quick as possible.
However, when she is pulled over, she already has the baby in her hands, umbilical cord attached, placenta present in her pants, telling the trooper that the baby had come out about 35 minutes ago. Telling the dispatcher that you were in active labor is already a suspicious thing to say. And many things were suspicious with Taylor. Though she was in hysterics, begging for the police to drive her to the hospital because the child wasn't breathing, she refused to go to one that was closer by, instead insisting to go to some other farther away hospital. Also, in the body cam footage, she doesn't seem to have any visible bump from being pregnant less than an hour ago. The suspicious behavior continues once she is admitted to a hospital. The doctors, concerned that she could be hemorrhaging, wanted to do a vaginal exam to make sure everything was okay post this traumatic birth, but she continually refused for some reason. Perhaps realizing that her continued refusal would spark more questions than answer them, Taylor would eventually agree to the exam. And again, on body cam, they bring in the OBGYN to take a look at her. And one look at her, and he's like, yeah, that woman didn't just give birth. He said it nicer than this, but every time I see him walking out with like the shake, I translate it in my head is, that bitch ain't had no baby. They're doing blood tests and urine tests, and she has no hormones within her body to suggest she was recently pregnant. And as disturbing as this entire scenario is, the moment I knew I had to bring out my computer was at 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Because Taylor is asked, again, on body cam, if this is her child. And that bitch is a terrible actress. Absolutely horrible. No one is sending her over for nothing, bitch. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. She act like Curse Nikki. I'm sorry, I don't know what. Of course it's my baby. What do you want? She's Southern. What do you want me to say?
I don't know what everybody wants me to talk about.
Seems like she feels like if she cries white ladily with a sweet Southern drawl, that would negate all the hard evidence that she not only had not given birth, especially on the side of the road, she had done something much, much more sinister than her bad acting, just over state lines. Our story begins in a small town in northern Texas called New Boston. And when I say small, I mean under 5,000 people there. And there we learn of Taylor from people who knew her. She was a pretty country girl who was very man-centered, loved attention. She was a divorced mother of 2 children, and she would meet her third husband, a man named Wade. And Wade was a rodeo boy. And together, they were in many ways an idyllic country couple, hunting, fishing, barnyarding, and whatever y'all do out in nature. I don't know nothing about that. My dad country is fuck, but the most I seen him do is sit on a stoop and get real mad. Drink a beer, sit on the stoop, and talk shit with old people and everybody wrong. Everyone around Wade would say pretty quickly that Taylor was a catch. People reached this conclusion because she was very nice, very personable, but in a way that is not, I think, focused on quite enough. She's also very wealthy, or so she would claim. She was from a very wealthy, toxic family, particularly had a hard relationship with her mother. She would claim to be an heiress, a grandchild of, I believe, the Morton Salt family, like the one with the little girl on the front at a salt. But she still had to work because her mother was encroaching on all the money she was owed from her grandparents. According to her, her relationship with her mother was incredibly horrible, incredibly toxic, even claimed that it was dangerous. Her mother could in some way try to snuff her out of the conversation of being someone who would receive inheritance once the grandparents were deceased. Her relationship with Wade would progress very quickly. She would move in with him. What'd I say about worst ex ever? Stop moving these niggas in so quickly. Also, side note, did y'all see they coming out with worst neighbor ever? They probably gonna do old girl from The Perfect Neighbor. I ain't gonna watch that one. I don't want to see the body cam footage. Maybe that one would be better though, because they might interview actual people instead of this, again, that weird voyeuristic, like, do I just want to watch a woman dying? Like, no, I don't. The fuck, is this a snuff film? But they moved in very quickly because Taylor was saying that she needed protection even from her mother, not knowing what extremes she would go to get her out of the will. And so he obliged. Again, she had 2 kids, a daughter that would be with her during the week, and a son who wasn't around at all, essentially. I assume the father had custody of that kid. But there wouldn't be much said about her as a mother. If anything, they would say she was kind of negligent as a mother. Generally, but we'll get to that later. Though Wade and Taylor's relationship progressed very quickly, it was pretty clear that Wade did not like Taylor very much. He thought that she did the things that wives are supposed to do or whatever. She cooked and she helped with the barn and all the like farm shit or country shit. I don't know. He had a discomfort for how quickly things were going. But again, I'm sure the lure of large windfalls of money possibly on the horizon would make you maybe say, oh, well, I can stomach it. Eventually, Taylor would say that her mother had fallen out of favor with the rest of the family, which would mean that she would soon get a windfall of $8 million from her grandparents. A fact she was telling all of Wade's family and friends about, which I find fucking weird. Maybe I'm just a bit more tight-lipped about financial shit, but I do find that people who be going around talking about how much money they have or how much they're gonna get unprovoked, it makes no sense to me. One, it just feels like broke behavior. I feel like truly wealthy people have other things to talk about, don't they? Well, I guess not, maybe not. It just seems strange, especially because he doesn't come from a very rich family. It's a showboating that feels odd to me. I mean, best case scenario, she's just an oversharer, but worst case scenario, she's really wanting to brag about something that, again, they didn't have yet. So, kind of weirdo shit. I don't know. Again, thinking back to Legion. I remember Legion. That's the shit he used to do. And in a very similar way, Taylor is a liar. We'll get to that. And of course, now they're talking about, well, if we're going to get this $8 million windfall, let's start buying a bunch of stuff. Again, mind you, they do not have $8 million, but they were told that they should and that they would. And there you go. They get to buying. And they start listing off the things that, again, Wade's friends and family started to notice they were buying very quickly. $80,000 tractor, $20,000 side-by-side, whatever the fuck that is. Again, I ain't country enough for that shit. Trucking ain't cheap, I see. But again, they did not have this money. So essentially, as I understand it, they were just going to these shops, these stores to buy large farm equipment with just a trust me, bro, and a promise of $8 million on the far seas or whatever they're not. Taylor would also go to Wade's mom's house and buy her a car, only for Taylor to say a few weeks or a few months later that, oh, it needs to be taken in for a recall. They're going to come and get it. And when the mom didn't get her car back, she called to find out what was going on, only to find out that the car was actually repossessed. No one had been making payments on it. So mom would be one of the first to have the inkling that this woman is a liar generally. Because if my car just got repossessed and they're making all these big purchases, does she have this money? Because I know Wade don't. So is he going to be stuck with that? Regardless, Taylor and Wade were out there looking for real estate. They were hopping all over the place, going to Oklahoma, would end up talking to a real estate agent about buying a $4 million plot of land, which she would say that she would pay in cash. And as realtors do, he wanted to see proof of funds, which she would constantly give him the runaround for, sending him to uncles, lawyers, bankers, Uncle Butch, whoever the fuck that is, a lawyer named Brett Lawyerson or some shit. Lawington. And for some reason or another, they would never be able to give that information. At one point, one of the realtors would even receive a letter from someone who claimed to be representing Taylor, basically reprimanding them for inquiring about whether or not she had the money to buy the thing that she said she was going to buy. At some point, it would be claimed that some Uncle Butch was going to wire her $300,000 of escrow money. And as you can imagine, that didn't happen either. And as you can imagine, this would create quite the strain on Taylor's and Wade's relationship. And they would tell their friends about it. And ultimately, it seemed to people outside of their relationship that Taylor was very afraid to lose him and that she didn't believe that he loved her as much as she does. Sorry. Again, just did a video on obsession. It's still in there. Why don't you love me? I'm sorry. But basically that she would hold on so tight, figuratively and physically, like they would see her like holding on to him. And sometimes he would just look so distant and withdrawn, like he was somewhere else. Again, I get the sense that he never really liked this bitch that much, but here we are married. And there is no better thing to do in the midst of a bad relationship than to have a baby. Tale as old as time. Taylor would visit one of Wade's friends who was a chiropractor and ask her if she could take a look at her body and tell if she's pregnant. And this is a quote. She would say, "I was looking in the mirror and my aura was different."
I asked her, I said, "Why do you think you're pregnant?" And she said, "Well, I looked in the mirror and my aura has changed."
I just know I'm pregnant. My aura changed. And so, without any tests or confirmation of anything, she just started telling people she was pregnant, including Wade, who again, didn't ever seem particularly happy about it. But lo and behold, one day she would come with doctor's papers that seemingly look legit that say she's pregnant. So they start buying things, high chairs, diapers, clothing. They have a gender reveal 2 months into her pregnancy. And she would ask one of, I guess they're now mutual friends, that was originally Wade's friend. Her name is Stephanie. She's married to another of Wade's friend who is also interviewed regularly, but I didn't note his name. But Taylor would go to Stephanie asking for her to do a gender reveal party for her, and she would send over paperwork that says anything of the sex of the baby. And Stephanie would look at it, and she noticed that the date was wrong. It said she was having a girl and that it was November 2016. This would be taking place in March 2020. Stephanie would bring it to Taylor's attention, and she would claim that her hospital would say that there was a bunch of misprints and mistakes made, but ultimately that the gender would be correct. They would have the gender reveal party. They'd be having a girl. They would bring out a baby cow with a little bow on. Country people in pregnancy are very weird, I've noticed. I remember a few years back, there was a trend that I somehow found myself aware of like country people putting their wives in like the cow stirrups or whatever and like marking them as bred, as they're like, they have bred the woman. Not like island, you know, I breed ya. No, I guess technically the same, but the vibe is different. And branding on her bred to announce they were pregnant. And again, I'm a Michigan girl. Maybe I just don't know the culture and I will keep going. Eventually, the documentary would bring up a former friend of Taylor's, a woman named Mackenzie. She used to be friends with Taylor. They were once very close. And though they were not close anymore, she was seeing her very public announcements on Facebook about her pregnancy. And Mackenzie would say that would make her sick to her stomach because she knew she was lying. Taylor was not pregnant. And not only was she not pregnant, she couldn't be pregnant physically. She had had a full hysterectomy. Again, being that this is a very small towns scare the fuck out of me. Everybody knew everybody. And another group of people who followed her on Facebook were doctors who had given her said hysterectomy. They couldn't say anything because that would violate HIPAA. But I guess now that she's in jail and it's part of probably court documents and whatnot, I guess they can talk about it now. So she had had 2 children, one that she had had at like 19 and another at 21, after which she would get her tubes tied. A year later, she would develop a cyst on her right ovary and an ectopic pregnancy in her left tube, which if left undealt with could have been fatal. And so while handling that, they would also discover that she had a bunch of scar tissue from when she had had a gastric sleeve. And so while she was already under anesthesia, her doctors called her mother and basically told her she needs to have a full hysterectomy to save her life. And her mother would give the okay while she was under, and she underwent a full hysterectomy. Though not in the documentary, I believe I watched or read something about her maybe trying to get a hitman to take out her mom for this, but they don't mention it here, so I'm gonna move along. But basically, all that to say, she literally physically cannot be pregnant. She doesn't have a uterus to impregnate. In court documents, it will be found that Taylor would frequent and purchase from websites whose entire purpose is to help you fake a pregnancy, which, controversial hot take, shouldn't exist. I don't think that should be allowed. Apparently, there are whole websites devoted to faking pregnancies and that provide things like fake ultrasounds, fake positive pregnancy tests, silicone bellies, some of which have the ability to mimic kicks. Anything you need to deceive and manipulate someone you know with the idea of your pregnancy. Again, that has gotta be illegal, right? We returned to Mackenzie as well as another former friend, a woman named Abby, and they would talk about when they were friends and what slowly started to erode their friendship. And a big part of that was that they think she a fucking liar. When they met her, she was always sick. She's always in and out of the hospital. Oh yeah, this is giving also a little bit of Mommy Dead and Dearest, Gypsy Blanchard. I've seen a lot of documentaries. Anyway, over the course of a very short amount of time, she would have a plethora of illnesses that just didn't sustain themselves for very long. It seemed once the attention, the immediate like shock and awe and concern kind of simmered down, she would come in with some other mysterious illness, none of which would stay for very long. She had a whole list: MS, cancer, had a stroke, brain tumor of some kind. She would take selfies in the hospital over and over, to such a degree that Abby was starting to question whether any of these were real. Mackenzie would soon get pregnant herself, and it was her rainbow baby. She had always been told that she may never conceive, so the fact that she was able to naturally was a wonderful surprise. But her pregnancy, especially upon the knowledge that she was having a girl, would strain their friendship more and more, because Taylor wanted to be very, very involved. Not involved in the sense of like, oh, my friend is pregnant and I want to throw her a baby shower, or I want to make sure she's okay, maybe make her some meals so that, you know, she's fed while taking care of a newborn. No, she did want to do a gender reveal party, which is nice, but she also wanted to know when her ultrasound appointments were, wanted the login information to her pregnancy tracking app. And her behavior was getting more and more concerning. Eventually, Taylor would ask them to be surrogates for her because she couldn't have a baby because she had a hysterectomy. And Abby was like, why the hell would she get another baby? She don't take care of the two she got. Now, they don't go into how she asked of them to be surrogates, but in another documentary that I saw on a YouTube video, I want to say Rotten Mango, but I saw quite a few. Essentially, she seemed to have this feeling of ownership over people's bodies, so I wouldn't be surprised if she was just like, just carry a fucking baby for me. It's like a steal. I'm giving you more money than the average person would get, which again, how was she gonna do that? She didn't have no fucking money. She's like, I'll pay you all this money. Have a baby for me. Eventually, it was getting very weird for both of these people, and they would break off from her. And again, they're watching her now locationally farther away. They haven't spoken very closely, but they're seeing that she's going on and on about this pregnancy. And they like, this a lying ass bitch. And as you can imagine, people started talking. Stephanie, Wade's friend from earlier, and Wade's mom were the first to start getting suspicious in an active way, like reaching out to clinics about the misprinted gender paper or whatever. And the clinic was like, we don't release papers like that, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Again, they couldn't confirm or deny whether or not she was pregnant or whether she had a hysterectomy or anything like that. But they were like, hey, trust your gut. I can't confirm or deny anything, but look inward.
All you've told me, I can tell you this, just go with your gut.
Trust your instincts.
But they're like, who would throw a gender reveal party if you're not pregnant? Who would make all these posts? Who would go through all this trouble? A woman that is very mentally ill, love. She's not well. She's not okay. Soon, Wade and others around his orbit would start getting these horrible, harassing emails, which eventually would be said to be from Taylor's horrible, greedy, abusive mother. And this would be the excuse that Taylor would give for bowing out of the purchase of the $4 million ranch. Eventually, spoiler, it would be found that all of these were written by Taylor. But honestly, if you even read some of them, it sounds like a fucking Batman villain gloating about their perfect master plan. Like, shit sound fake as fuck. It felt very like, I would have gotten away with it. Jinkies, zoinks, if it weren't for you meddling kids type energy. This whole detailed and very convenient sequence of events that explains why Taylor looks so bad, but also presented by the person that made her look so bad, supposedly. It made no fucking sense. But okay, similar to Lawington or whatever that she did to people. But as we have seen at this point, Taylor is a pathological liar, and she has been since childhood. They would eventually interview people who went to school with her growing up. One would say that she would go around asking classmates for nudes so that she could send them to boys, wanting to catfish them. She would talk to a bunch of boys, lying at the same time about all her experiences and what she looked like. She was catfishing a lot of people. One of her coworkers would say that she had found out that the coworker had lost their youngest child, and so conveniently, so did Taylor. And they shared in this very pantomime of closeness. Shout out to Midsommar, where they're just crying. And she's like, I see you. I can hear you. I know what you're feeling. And all of that was a lie. Very disturbing. It gets worse, as you will see. Mackenzie would suggest that a thing that she would do, she would kind of observe and take parts of people's lives to make this reality that felt more real, or make a life that feels more real to her, which I think is pretty spot on. Sounds like what the nut bitch was doing. I'm sorry. Eventually she would get fired from that job, by the way, with the coworker, because she was lying on a bunch of shit and putting her boss's name on a bunch of shit and saying she was doing work and she just wasn't doing it. And so eventually she would be fired and start doing photography for special events. And unfortunately, this is where she would meet a woman named Reagan. Reagan would hire her to be a photographer for her wedding. They would even get close enough to be Facebook friends. But back to our present. You may start wondering, why has no one straight up said that this bitch is not pregnant in the circle, right? And I don't know. They basically said Wade didn't know she wasn't pregnant because they hadn't had sex, because she was insecure about her body and her stretch marks. He was like, okay, cool. Again, it's pretty clear he didn't like the bitch that much. So he just spent his time out of the house, busy with the farm animals. And he was like, oh, okay, well, you've had babies before I hadn't, so you know what to do. So he just let her frolic. Occasionally he would come with her to doctor's appointments, but he would either stay in the car or suddenly the doctor had to reschedule last minute if he was going to go in. Now, honestly, I don't know if he didn't think she was pregnant. I think he was just mad he was in this situation regardless. Like, it was pretty clear he didn't want the baby. He didn't want the marriage. He was there for the money, and he bit off more than he could chew, and he didn't get no money. So that nigga was checked out. And to push it was to acknowledge she was lying about so much, including that life that she said was possible for them because of all of her riches. And again, who would plan a big ranch style maternity shoot with him and a horse and a gender reveal and all, then talk online and do like, where are you getting this stuff to fake this shit? Certainly nobody would do that. Eventually, the friend Stephanie would be introduced to Mackenzie, and that's where she would be able to confirm that no, she was not pregnant. And so Stephanie started spreading the word that bitch ain't pregnant. And people were saying very loudly, the bitch ain't pregnant. You're lying. You're weird. And unfortunately, Reagan was far enough away from everything and thought well enough of Taylor to think that people were kind of bullying her. And so, unfortunately, she would believe that Taylor was the victim in this. They would build a closeness, especially since Reagan was pregnant with a girl. Now that so many people around Taylor, except for Wade, who seemingly, again, didn't want to believe, even as people were starting to get more and more direct to him, like, she's not pregnant. People started to wonder, what is she going to do? She can't do this forever. She's getting closer and closer to her supposed delivery date. What is she going to do? Is she going to fake a miscarriage? And Wade's mom would say, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem right. What about this? What about this? What about that? Stephanie would straight up go to Taylor and say, you fucking lying. And Taylor would have everything, even if it didn't really make sense, she would somehow blame her mom for why her story didn't make sense. Basically, she's this evil manipulator and she's trying to get people to be against me. And she's like, why would she have you fake a pregnancy to make you what? And she was like, no, that's her plan. The bitch is crazy. Eventually, Stephanie would be able to, around the small town, she would end up getting Taylor's mother's number. And she was quickly able to confirm that 1, she had a hysterectomy. 2, she didn't come for money. 3, there is no inheritance. Taylor's mom, however, didn't want to tell because her fear was that Taylor would cut her off entirely from her grandchild, the firstborn daughter. I don't know. I think, so Stephanie would tell Wade. And again, he was like, no, her mom is evil. Why are you listening to her mother? She's a liar. Eventually, Wade would start getting in arguments with Stephanie and her husband, and they both had to close off their friendship. They were like, damn, he won't listen to me. And this is hard to watch. I don't know what to do. But Taylor's due date would come and go and still no baby. And after a while, she would already be 10 months pregnant, needing seemingly to be induced. As that induction day would get closer and closer, as you can imagine, inconvenient things would start happening. Their house would set on fire in the middle of the night. The hospital she was to go to would receive a bomb threat. And Wade would now be like, bitch, are you pregnant? I don't think you're pregnant. She would get very upset. How dare you say I'm lying? I am pregnant. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to prove you wrong. And so she would reach out to Reagan, telling her about how overwhelmed she was with everything and how people were speaking to her and how she was getting more and more nervous now that the induction was coming up. And they would meet up to hang out. Apparently it was a fine hangout. She hung out with Reagan and her husband. Everything was fine and she would go back home. But the next morning, Reagan's husband would start getting really alarming text messages while he was out at work, making it seem like Reagan was in a dangerous space mentally, which would be very abrupt. She seemed fine last night. We were all laughing and hee-heeing with Taylor. So he would contact Reagan's mother to check on her while he made his way over. All while this was happening, Taylor would convince Wade to meet a man about selling some hogs in a faraway city. When Wade would get there, the man had no idea who the fuck he was or what he was talking about. He's like, oh, okay, I didn't ask for no hogs. Reagan's mother would find her dead. Reagan had been murdered, stabbed many times with a scalpel. And as horrible as that was already, perhaps another devastating punch in the gut was that when EMT arrives, they would come and discover that her unborn child was missing, having been cut and stolen out of her womb. Reagan had an older daughter who was also at home at the time of the murder and was found upstairs in her room hiding. We return to the events of the beginning of Taylor being pulled over with the baby, giving it CPR in the car. Unfortunately, the child would not make it. And as we saw in the beginning, it was very clear that Taylor had murdered Reagan. As you can imagine, it's sending me into a bit of a whirlwind right now because, like, to imagine, I'm trying to not go too much into specifics of the crime scene. The case is harrowing in and of itself, and to do this to a person is harrowing and disgusting in of itself. But there was indication that Reagan was alive while she was trying to perform a C-section on her body, and that she was trying to save her baby until her dying breath. And yeah, I will look away from my distaste of the death penalty because obviously some of y'all need it. There was no question that Taylor had done this. So the trial was less about whether or not she was guilty. Like, she was literally holding the child. It was more so on what grounds they could get her for double murder if the child was stillborn. There was a bunch of technicalities around whether or not they could charge her for kidnapping of the unborn child if the child had been dead upon delivery. It's a bunch of semantics and technicalities, and law pisses me off partially because of that, because it's just so detached and dehumanizing. But essentially, if the baby had taken a breath, then it was alive and it could have been alive. And thus her taking of the child was kidnapping and murder. And her defense was trying to take out kidnapping and insinuating that the baby was basically dead already. If I'm not mistaken, they would find her for kidnapping and double murder. A lot would come out about Taylor and her general web of lies, forging of signatures, use of several phones and phone numbers, voice altering applications to call in bomb threats, for example, fake names, fake people, texting herself, more than $20 million in real estate schemes. Also, as if the crime wasn't in and of itself a disgusting violation, she would also give various wild stories about what occurred with Reagan, basically saying that Reagan attacked her first and then she fell and she knew that she was dying. So with her last dying breath, she said, "Cut the baby out, save my baby." She needs to get beat. I don't know, man. I try to venture away from the police industrial complex in general, but man, some people need to be pushed off of a fucking cliff very, again, Midsummer style. Like, can we burn her alive? Is that too much? Is it? I don't know. Needless to say, her story didn't land because it didn't make any fucking sense. And so she would obviously be found guilty and would, at least in one way, become astounding, being the youngest woman on Texas death row. Congrats, you disgusting nut bitch. That's unfortunately the story of Reagan's death. 21 years old, by the way. Incredibly young, a young mother. I'm about to cry. I'm trying not to. Because, like, usually I feel like I have to say something. But what else can you say? It's so fucking disgusting. And it's incredibly frustrating because all she did was befriend someone. And, like, what could have been done to stop this? I don't know. I feel like, well, one, there shouldn't have been a fucking fake of pregnancy. Fucking stupid. I don't think they thought, you know, oh, you didn't know it was going to lead to murder, but you knew it was going to lead to someone faking a fucking pregnancy. I don't know. And then you want to blame something or someone else because maybe something could have been done to stop it. But the person that did it is Taylor. And I'm just kind of disgusted. I don't know what more to say other than that bitch can burn a hill. And I hope she shits out pine cones. There was a part at the end of the documentary where, I guess, to kind of close this awful story, true story. Throughout it, they were interviewing Reagan's sister, who basically is struggling with some concept of forgiveness. And she goes to a pastor and he says something along the lines of like, everyone can be forgiven, but not by us. And personally, I don't think we have to go out of our way to forgive everybody. Fuck her. Fuck her. I hope she has a horrible time. I hope she shit out hot sauce. I hope she getting her ass beat. I hope she's regular getting her ass beat in jail. That's what I want. I don't know how Christian that is of me, but get fucked. I haven't paid my tithes in years. Sorry, trying to end on a lightness. She has forever changed so many people's lives in, again, this very small community. You murdered a young mother, you killed her child, and you've just decimated everyone you've come in contact with your entire life. I wouldn't be surprised if she's this way because of something in her upbringing. I know a lot of people have a lot of, what was her relationship with her mother? Like, what was this upbringing that would make her like this? And I think we could all speculate. But at the end of the day, she's a selfish, horrible, disgusting woman. And I'm bummed, so I'm going to end it here. Sorry I couldn't end it in a way that, oh no, it should feel heavy. It's a heavy fucking thing. So yeah, that's all for today, folks. Like the video if you want. Follow me. Let me know what your thoughts were on the case overall, the documentary itself. And I'm probably going to watch more documentaries. There's Big Girls Wanted, Escape from Paradise, the one about the SSBBW content house. Again, they're coming out with Worst Neighbor Ever. I know that's going to make me mad. Shit. Please, Jesus. Niggas ain't moved into the houses near me yet. Anyway, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.